Welcome in TNC Radio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. I'm Tom Kelly. We're going to be with you for the next hour talking about all sorts of good things, keeping our minds strong and healthy. And Dr. Cortman, over the course of the last few weeks, we've been going through the acronym FORGIVE. And we've covered a lot of the letters there. And I believe tonight we're on the letter T. Is that right?
Letter V.
Okay. That was supposed to be funny.
Tonight's show is brought to us by the letter V.
The letter V, that's right. So
which stands for volleyball in Vermont while driving a Volvo.
Okay, thought it was something like that. So, yeah. But before we get into the letter V, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about the previous letters we have visited over the course of the last few weeks.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I want to just review this because I have been taught in my years of work that the key to learning is very often repetition. And Tom and I were just talking about that before the show, how many times we have learned unwanted jingles and things like you were talking about the Dr. Pepper jingle. And I can remember all of the cigarette advertisements from when I was a little boy because they were smart enough to say things like, Tarryton's better, charcoal is why. Tarryton's better, charcoal is why. And yeah. I would know that at age 7, and I didn't know why I knew that or what it really meant. But I was being programmed, and they were smart enough to know that the way that we can teach people things is through repetition. So today we're going back over every one of these letters in the acronym that spell out the word forgive. And for those of you who are just joining us, the reason for talking about these 7 words is because each of them are linked by evidence-based research to 2 things in particular: well-being / happiness and longevity, living longer. So they're worth noting. They're cognitive and behavioral, if you will, directives, things that you can practice or learn to do. And they're associated with very, very positive outcomes. So if we begin with the letter F to spell out the word forgive, the F word is forgive. And the research, essentially says that forgiveness is the key to overcoming many issues in life, not only the obvious of resentment, but learning to let go is what helps us to heal emotionally, pretty much from everything from being betrayed, abandoned, physically abused, sexually abused, cheated on, even just going through losses in life, like grieving. We have to end up letting go. We have to learn to forgive others, and we have to learn to forgive ourselves, because there are so many times in life where we behave in a manner that's beneath our own moral code, if you will. And self-forgiveness is necessary if we're ever going to heal from our own foolishness. Letting go is what helps us to let go of alcohol and drug addiction. Letting go is what helps us to finally say goodbye to a broken and toxic relationship. Letting go is what helps us to get over trauma. Eventually, it's not time that heals it. It's being able to feel, express, and release, say goodbye to the traumatic event. It helps us with phobias. I'm working now, Tom, with a woman who has had agoraphobia. That is a fear of the marketplace in the literal Greek, but in reality, she doesn't leave her house. She doesn't drive out of her house. I'm going to her house this weekend and I'm going to encourage her to get in the car and drive me, which I might as well ask her to, take a leap off of a bridge. It's that scary for her, but we have to face what we're afraid of and we have to let go of that fear. So when I say the word forgive, I guess I'm saying the most simple definition of forgive is to let go. And I don't know if I said this before over the weeks, but my very favorite definition of forgive came from an 82-year-old female in my office. And she said, so if I hear you correctly, doctor, what you're saying to me is that I need to let go of everything that makes my head crazy. And I stood up out of my chair and said, that's the best definition I've ever heard of. I wrote it down at my desk because I never wanted to forget that. Letting go. What do you need to let go of? Everything that makes your head crazy. So that's the F word. The O word is optimism. And as talked about weeks ago, and again tonight, optimism is simply explaining the world to yourself in a very positive way. It's easier if you're a person of faith to be optimistic because you ultimately believe that your life has a purpose. You ultimately believe that good things will happen in this world and in the next. But not everybody is a person of faith. I get that. And so it's important to understand that just by thinking positive thoughts, that just by explaining things in a positive way to yourself, that the outcomes are better in virtually every area of life. Optimists do not suffer depression like pessimists do. Optimists are more inclined to live longer. Optimists are less likely to succumb to cancer. Optimists have better outcomes when they do have cancer. They have better outcomes when they have cardiac illness. They have better outcomes with pregnancy. And it's amazing how the mind and body work together. And an optimist is one who lives in a sense of things are going to be all right. Things are going to work out okay. I'm happy to be here kind of thing. And so that's the O word. And again, if you say, I've just never been that way, I would encourage you, yeah, a lot of us aren't. A lot of us haven't been. But you can learn to think optimistically today, especially when you know that this is healthier than being pessimistic. The R word is relationships. And relationships, we now know, bolster our lives in terms of happiness and well-being, and they help us to live longer. There is study after study. One of them I don't think I ever mentioned, but one of the longest studies ever, they call them longitudinal studies, came out of Harvard in John F. Kennedy's sophomore year of college. They began to study everybody in that class, and they followed these guys, not in the creepy way, but they followed them for their entire lives, checking to see how these people were faring. And they tried to measure them in as many ways as possible to see, how they ended up and why they ended up that way. And I remember reading about this, Tom, and two of the most outstanding lessons that came from the study. Number one, cholesterol meant nothing. It just wasn't linked with anything meaningful.
Okay.
But friendship meant everything. When people had friends in their lives, they were significantly more likely to be happier, have well-being, just to talk positively about their lives. And, there are so many studies that say things like, if you had a defibrillator put into your chest to protect against a heart attack, one study found you were much more likely to recover if you had 3 or more friends. I mean, crazy stuff like that, that just having your homies. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about relationships that we had new research that said if you have friendships as a kid, it helped to protect you from depression later on in your life. It served as a guard against becoming depressed later on, merely because, you knew how to connect with people and you had people who loved you and were on your team. Study after study on that. If I didn't mention the one about the old men, or even if I did, forgive me, but great study where they took old men and they just basically divided them into two groups. And one of the two groups were asked or told essentially to join a social club or a volunteer club, some kind of a club. And the other group was not. And the researchers came back a couple of years later to check on these men. And much to their amazement, the men in the first group who were asked to join a club or made to join a club were statistically significantly more likely to be alive than the other guys. The only difference being they had a place to go every week and stuff to do and people there that, they knew they liked, that counted on them. Again, then there's all kinds of research on long-term relationships, marriages. I know most of my audience is male, and I want to repeat myself here that long-term relationships for a male is chock full of opportunities, and the research says you are better off than your single friends in everything from happiness and less depression and less anxiety to drinking less, smoking less, making more money, having more and better sex, closer relationships. It just goes on and on, the advantages to a man having a long-term partner. So I point those things out because there's a lot to be grateful for, which, by the way, is the G word, gratitude.
And I tell you what, let's talk about gratitude in just a few minutes. I'll be very thankful if we can get in a couple of quick words here, and then we'll be back in just a few minutes right here on tncradio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. Stay tuned.
6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. When there's an incoming heat wave, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow the Truckers Network's 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check your tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road causes your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to look at the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose can lead to engine failure. Check your brakes. Cold and hot weather affect your semi-truck's brakes. When you brake, you create a significant amount of friction and your brakes become extremely hot. When you add in hot weather, your brakes have an even higher chance of failing. To avoid your brakes from failing, brake gradually to decrease the amount of heat. Also, regularly check your brake pads to ensure they're working properly. Tips to protect yourself from the hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these tips to keep yourself cool and safe. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. Remember to tune into the Truckers Network radio show with Shelley Johnson, weekdays at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back, TNCRadio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman, and I'm Tom Kelly. And we're going through the word forgive, and we've been reviewing what the acronym stands for. And so far, we've made it through the F, O, and R, and now it's the G, and that's for gratitude.
The G is for gratitude. And again, gratitude is very, very simple. It's basically saying thank you. It's the ability to say that there is so much that I've been blessed with, that there's so much that I take for granted. There's so many good things and good people in my life, and I don't take time enough to mention those things. And you know, the research says that we not only want to make a list of those things as often as possible, but we also want to extend that gratitude directly to the people that we're grateful for. I have still not been punched in the face for telling somebody how grateful I am to have them in my life and how my life has been upgraded by the way they do X, Y, or Z. No one has ever spat upon me, cursed me out, or aggressed in any way, because people really like to hear that they make a difference. And what the research has demonstrated is that it's the person expressing that gratitude that ends up, reaping as much or more benefits as the person hearing. So, who have you said thank you to lately? And I don't mean your server, or the person at the toll booth who took your $1.50, but rather, who have you taken the time to call them up or sit down with them, or even send a beautiful text that lets them know, hey, I really appreciate you inviting us over to your party the other night. I love hanging out with you. I like counting you among my friends, or something. It doesn't take a lot of time. But again, the research says grateful people live longer. Grateful people are happier, and happy people are grateful. It's remarkable what gratitude does. One of these great studies they did where they didn't take grateful people, they took normal people and they made them be grateful or to think gratefully by listing 3 things that happened every day that they were grateful for, or 3 things they were grateful for every day for, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks. And they found in that short period of time many significant changes over the other 2 groups they studied. Those 2 groups were asked to write 3 things that happened, or in one group, 3 complaints that they had. And just by identifying things that the people were grateful for, they prospered in probably a half a dozen different areas of their lives in like a month. Just really remarkable, just because they focused on what there is to be thankful for. And again, gratitude was one of 2 things I've ever read that actually tends to reverse aging in our bodies, and the other one being jogging. And I may have told you that I have been clever enough to bring those 2 concepts together, such that when I finish jogging, I always say, oh, thank God. Because I'm going to do whatever I can to reverse the aging.
There you go.
So gratitude is the G word. Last week we talked about the I word, which is investment. And what we talked about is that we need to have things that we believe in. We need to have causes. We need to have purpose. That people who have a life that has purpose, that has meaning, do significantly better in all areas than people who don't know why they're here or don't have any meaning to their lives or wonder what is the purpose of this suffering, this 70, 80 years of what is this about? Why are we here? And of course, the existentialists will say, if you don't have meaning in your life, go find meaning. Make a purpose. Find a purpose for yourself. If you don't buy into somebody else's purpose, that's fine. But you need to have a direction. You need to have meaning. You need to have things you believe in. You need to have a plan. You need to have stuff to do. People who do not fare as well. Which leads us to a very nice little segue into the V word, which is volunteering. We have research now, Tom, that says volunteers are happier people than non-volunteers. And volunteers, again, live longer. People who give of themselves are happier. It is more blessed to give than receive, as was once quoted. And why is that? Why do volunteers do so much better? Well, years ago, the great neo-Freudian Alfred Adler would have depressed people that he would treat. And one of his secrets was to get their minds off of themselves. Depressed people have a way of seeing the world in a way that is very self-absorbed. It's a small world. It's about me and my suffering. They don't see a bigger picture. And at times they can't because they're so locked into their own frustration, sadness, dysphoria, just seeing everything as being so hard and so painful and so hopeless, which is one of the defining characteristics of depression, is hopelessness. Anyway, his mission was to get them out of themselves, because to focus on helping other people actually helps us to be happier. If you've ever done anything that touched the life of another person, there's a huge payoff. And it could be very, very small kinds of things. I was standing outside yesterday at a restaurant waiting for brunch, and one car pulled up, and I could see there was a little lady struggling to get out of the car. So I ran over and reached my arm to grab her hand and helped her get out of the car. It wasn't a great Herculean feat by any means, but she thanked me and she went off to the restaurant. Moments later, another car, same thing. The guy drives up, he lets this lady get out and she can't. So I go and I help her, and she grabs onto my arm and she says, "You're not done now. You got to take me all the way in." She goes, "Where's your boy? Where's your girlfriend? He's mine now." And so we're chuckling together, and I get inside, and then both little old ladies were saying, "That's the guy. That's the guy." All I did was help them get out of the car. But I might as well have been a superhero to them with all the nice comments that they said. And you know what? It feels good. It feels good to make a difference. It feels good to be thanked. It feels good to be a volunteer in any capacity, Tom, because the research says we are social creatures. However we got here, we do better when we connect with others. However we got here, we do better when we help one another, when we promote one another. So there are so many advantages according to the research. I'll just go over some of them. Right at the top of the list is that volunteering gives us a sense of purpose. You know, if you're not involved in some kind of a group or a club or a church or a program or something that promotes the lives of others, I would really strongly encourage that, because it immediately provides you with a purpose. There are people out there that we're helping. I'm going to brag about my Sertoma Club of Venice, Florida. Sertoma stands for Service to Mankind. And what we do is we help children who have speech issues, speech impediments. And we have a clinic that helps those kids with speech therapists. And we pay for the therapists and they learn how to speak. And, you know, Tom, most of these kids are male because females come out speaking. They don't have the same issues with talking.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, I say that half kidding, but the truth is women speak over twice as much as men do. The research says they say like 27,000 words in a day to our 12,000. So most speech issues are for male children. But anyway, my club, Little Venice, Florida, which is a town of, I don't know, 10,000 people. I don't know. But it's the largest in the entire United States. And these people are great people. They're giving of their time to help these kids and everything else going on in the community we're involved in. You know, if it comes to raising money for Little League or All Faiths Food Bank or really any kind of issue coming up in the town, the beautification of the downtown, whatever it is, you can see our Sertoma guys and we're volunteering. And, you know, we have these things where we sell cheeseburgers once a year at the Sun Fiesta. And my patients will recognize me and they'll go, Dr. Cortman, that's you. And I was like, well, I hate to tell you, this is my real gig. I sell cheeseburgers. That other thing you see me do, that's just a side thing.
That's good. Yeah.
You know, it's all about, you know, getting involved in the community. It's a wonderful time. We get way more volunteers than we need because it's such a good time hanging out and selling cheeseburgers to the community.
Gotcha.
But you need a break?
We've got another moment.
Okay. So research also says that volunteering actually improves our social life. It gives us friends that we didn't have before, and it improves our social skills. I mean, we actually improve our social skills just by getting out and involving ourselves with other people. You know, it builds a support system, and the research says it protects against depression. And that's a fantastic thing. You know, when we're going through challenging times, people will say, I was feeling really low after so-and-so died, and then I went out to a meeting, and you guys just brought me out of my hole. You know, just having a bunch of people there, all trying to promote the same cause, you know, something that you believe in. It's linked with improved self-esteem, and you get other skills. You know, sometimes it's a good idea to join a club because you'll learn some skills you never had before, because they need volunteers to do certain things that are out of your comfort zone. So you just do it. You learn how to do it.
Yeah. All right, tell you what, let's take a quick break and come back in. We're going to talk more about volunteering and its overall role in the word forgive. And we'll be back here in just a few minutes. You're listening to TNCRadio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. The great psychotherapist Maxie Maltzby once wrote that there are 5 ways, 5 criteria to assess whether our thoughts are rational or not. In his opinion, we only wanted to think rational thoughts. An irrational thought is actually something that's going to create emotional pain and get us in trouble in some way or another. So here they are, the 5 criteria for rational thinking. First, is my thought in line with objective reality? In other words, is it true, or am I exaggerating and creating falsehoods? Secondly, is it likely to make me feel the way I want to feel? Again, is this a thought that promotes my mental health, or is it something that makes me feel frightened or anxious or resentful? Thirdly, is it problem solving? Rational thinking should solve problems, not create bigger ones. Number 4, is it in line with my long-term best interest? Rational thoughts are not only good for me in the here and now, but they help me in the long term. And again, gratitude, optimism, forgiveness, that promotes my long-term best interest. And finally, and this one doesn't always apply, but is this thought likely to get me in conflict with other people? If the answer to that one is yes, then it's usually not a rational thought. Try to get 5 out of 5 when you assess your thinking. And if you don't, change your thinking.
The Hotshot Secret Facebook page gets a lot of robust Q&A about diesel problems and their solutions. We listen to our customers. Here are their words straight from their mouths about Hotshot Secret Everyday Diesel Treatment. Our fans call it EDT.
I'm John Sharp, a.k.a. Jay Sharp from Newburgh, Pennsylvania. Using EDT, my local fuel mileage went to average of 22 to 23, and my highway MPG went to 26 to 28.
Hi, I'm Danny. I'm from Arizona. I drive a 02 Ford Excursion. I use EDT at every fill-up, and my mileage went from 12.5 miles to gallon to 14 miles per gallon. I highly recommend it.
Everyday Diesel Treatment delivers a 6-in-1 premium fuel treatment for every fill-up, every time.
Everyday Diesel Treatment is available at truck stops, Tractor Supply, O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and online at HotShotSecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. I'm Tom Kelly, and Dr. Chris and I are going through talking about the word forgive. He's built it into a acronym, and we've been looking at all the different letters and kind of reminding everybody about what the letters have been in the past. And today is V for violence. No, that wasn't it. It was V for vacation.
Yeah, it wasn't that either. But it just tells you how much we're in need of working in your sessions, Tom.
Yeah. So maybe it's V for volunteering.
Yeah, that's a V for victory right there. It's volunteering.
All right. So let's talk more about that. You've mentioned the club you're in. You know, volunteering isn't necessarily mean you've got to go to the soup kitchen either. There's a lot of different ways you can volunteer, right?
You know, there's so many ways you can volunteer. Let's talk about some of them. We have research that says just being involved with pets or animals, it makes people feel better about themselves. It reduces your blood pressure just to pet a cat or a dog. And there's so many people who do really, really well with animals. And some of these people admittedly don't do as well with humans. And they'll do any kind of volunteering that there is with animals. And I'll remind them, we have animal shelters and we have all kinds of, humane society type things, and local veterinarians can use volunteers. If you're good with, with animals, look at, 4-H clubs and farms, and people like volunteers because they don't always have a budget that they could pay, full-time employees. So yeah, you can do that kind of thing. And there's all kinds of service clubs. There's Rotaries, there's Kiwanis. I mentioned Sertoma. There's Lions clubs. There's, Elks clubs. There's just as many clubs as you can think of, and they all have a particular cause. and there's something that they believe in. Then there's political clubs, whatever side of the fence you stand on, there are clubs and volunteer opportunities to get involved with that. There's libraries for people. They always need volunteers. There's family shelters. There's so many needy people. There's national parks. National parks, beautiful places to go every day and volunteer where they need people that they can't afford to pay. There's all kinds of youth organizations, whether it's like a YMCA type thing or Jewish community services. The same thing's true for Catholics and other faiths. There's faith-based organizations that cater to children. There's the arts. There's
that's what I was going to mention. Yep.
We all need. There are people who volunteer as ushers, and this is a very cultural town, Sarasota, Florida, and a lot of people will volunteer as ushers, and they'll get to see all the big acts the entire season long for free, and all they have to do is seat people at the beginning of the show, hand them a playbook or whatever, and then they get to watch every performance. It's a great opportunity, but what's even better is all the cool people you meet, because I don't know if I have to say this out loud, but generally speaking, volunteers are good people, because by definition, they're giving of their time for free to make the world a better place. So it's a really good place to meet a wife if you don't have one, to find a best friend, to find some homies to hang out with, because generally speaking, not down to the person, but generally speaking, there's fine people involved in these things. You can think of food pantries, and again, places of worship. Who doesn't need volunteers? They have greeters on a Sunday who are people who smile, and at least they used to shake your hand. Now, I guess with COVID, they kind of blink twice at you or something behind their mask. But the point being, there's room in the world for every one of you guys to do something. We need more Little League coaches. We need more Sunday school teachers. We need more assistant football coaches. We need people to do Boy Scouts. Some of these organizations have been ruined by scandals of people who would take advantage of the youth. Well, we need solid role model guys that every kid looks up to. We need volunteers to help the teachers in our schools.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention that too. A lot of schools have programs to help read with children. And, if your grandkids are far away and you want to be near kids, there's a program for that. Come in and read the class a book. They love that stuff. They love it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And a guy like you who's got the beautiful radio voice, you'll have them mesmerized just by sitting there and reading a book to them.
Especially if you can do multiple voices and that kind of stuff. If you're kind of a ham, you want to ham it up. You can usually find a pretty a crowd that's willing to be entertained.
Well, let's go further on that. Back in my history, this is a true story, I decided I would get involved in an organization called Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And I don't know, I was like 27 at the time. And they hooked me up with a 12-year-old boy. And I didn't know anything about him, and he didn't know anything about me, but they made us a match. And he didn't have a father, and he didn't have any siblings. He had one mother who she just said to me, Chris, if you could just stay with us to get him through high school, I would be so grateful. And I said, I don't think there's any reason why I can't do that. And he wasn't always the easiest kid, not at the time. But a few years into it, we really strengthened our bond. And we won the Big Brother of the Year competition. Did you need to?
No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. And skip ahead. He was my best man in my wedding, and I was the best man in his wedding. And then we both got divorced, blamed each other. And
Okay.
here we are now. I don't know how many years it's been, like more than 35 years later, and we still call each other. We still check in. It's always, I love you, big brother. I love you too, man. And it's just this beautiful relationship that's lasted his entire life since he was 12. And I guess he's like, I don't know, 47 now, whatever he is. And it's a fantastic thing because we spent, a few hours once a week during his high school. It's just, to me, that's one of the most meaningful things that I did. And I don't feel like I did a lot.
Well, I tell you what, let's take a break. And when we come back, Dr. Chris, I have a list of places where truckers can volunteer to help others out as a part of just part of life. So we'll go through that and look at some of the opportunities that are out there. Because you're thinking, I drive truck all day. What could I possibly do to help? Actually, we've got that covered. So we'll be talking about that here in just a couple of minutes right here on tncradio.live. Stay tuned.
This blog on tncradio.live is brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net. 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Driving in the heat can create dangerous situations for truck drivers. Drivers need to take specific precautions before hitting the road in extreme heat. With the incoming heat wave dubbed as a heat dome by the National Weather Service, drivers need to be aware of how to safely drive in these weather conditions. Follow our 6 safety tips for truck driving in hot weather. Every truck driver needs to complete a pre-trip inspection before driving, especially in hot weather. Check tires. Heat can have a huge effect on your tires. As the temperature increases, so does the air pressure in your tires. During the hottest months of the year, it's important to frequently check your tire pressure. Frequently checking on your tires can save you from a blowout. To get an accurate measurement, wait for your tires to cool down before checking the pressure. The heat and friction from the road cause your tires to warm up, which will cause a rise in tire pressure. Also, don't be afraid to take a break every couple of hours to let your tires cool down. While traveling in the summer months, you may want to give yourself some extra time to stop and check on your tires. Protect your engine. Not only should you protect yourself from the heat this summer, but you should also protect your engine. One way to keep your engine from overheating is to frequently check the engine oil. The oil keeps the engine cool and keeps the parts running smoothly. Engine coolant is just as important as engine oil. Coolant helps prevent the engine from overheating in extremely hot temperatures. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature gauge while driving. If the gauge goes above the safe temperature, pull over and see what's going on. Failing to assess the situation could lead to engine failure. Also, make sure to check for leaks in the hoses. A cracked hose could lead to engine failure. Tips to protect yourself from hot weather. It's just as important to protect yourself during extremely hot weather. Follow these steps to keep yourself cool and safe during these hot months. Stock up on water. As the temperature increases, you need to increase your water intake. Make sure to always have water in your truck. You never know when you might get stuck in traffic or break down on the side of the road. Wear sunscreen. Many truck drivers forget this step. Even when you're in your truck, you're still exposed to the harmful UVA rays from the sun. Make sure to put sunscreen on before hitting the road. Wear light-colored clothes. Light-colored clothing reflects light, and dark-colored clothing absorbs it. Wearing light-colored, loose-fitting clothes helps you stay cooler and more comfortable on the road. And be sure to check out our blog, 6 Safety Tips for Truck Driving While Driving in the Rain. This blog on tncradio.live was brought to you by the Truckers Network at app.thetruckersnetwork.net.
For the latest in ride-sharing gig economy news, visit uberliftdrivers.com. That's uberliftdrivers.com. Welcome back in tncradio.live. Final segment tonight for Building Strong Minds with Dr. Christopher Cortman. And I hope you all are enjoying the program. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. Dr. Chris at tncradio.live. Dr. Chris at tncradio.live. Dr. Chris at tncradio.live. We will never divulge who sent us which email or anything like that. But if there's a question you want to ask, a topic you want us to cover, something you got on your mind, just let us know right here on tncradio.live. Dr. Chris, so back to you, sir. Tell us what else.
I was thinking something, Tom, about the great theorist Erik Erikson wrote about 8 stages of a man's life. And in the 8 stages, we have a task to complete in order to move on successfully and happily to the last stage. And if you get to the last stage of life, when people move into their 70s and beyond, he talked about the big conflict there being generativity versus stagnation. And what he said about that is that at this stage of life, either we learn to give back and to promote the younger generations, either we learn to take all of the love, the wisdom, the experiences, the money that we've managed to earn in the course of our lives and somehow make the world a better place. Either we learn to do that or we stagnate. And that is, we become empty and lonely and miserable and go into, what was this all for? Why did I live this life? Who needs me? What purpose do I serve? So one of the reasons I bring this up today is because throughout our lives, we need to be aware that this is not just about me. It's not even just about my family. It's not about how much money I earn. It's not who dies with the most toys wins. It's about, how can I make a difference? How can I touch the lives of others? Where can I make this a better place? And so, I understand the audience are hardworking guys who are driving all over the country and aren't always in the same spot every week to be at a meeting. But I also understand that you, sir, have a list of things that truckers could do so that they can get involved in making this world a better place and making themselves be a little happier by getting involved in volunteering.
We do have a list. If you go out to our website, tncradio.live, and look under corporate responsibility. This is something that from the very founding of our company, before we had broadcast our first episode of anything, we had talked about that we wanted to be a positive influence. And as a part of that, we have always invited and acknowledged different groups from around the transportation industry, and have shared what they're doing with our listening audience, and have encouraged others to give. For instance, up in Delaware, Pennsylvania area later, just a week and a half from now, a little bit more than that, on May the 8th, Mother's Day, there's a huge parade. Dr. Chris, over 700 trucks in one parade raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So you can go out. Actually, if you're listening to us on the app right now, if you press the donate button, you can donate and help these kids out. Some of these kids are literally fighting for their lives, and some of them have a wish, and so we work to help make wishes come true. So there's lots of different things like that. For instance, there's the Truckers Emergency Assistance Responders, TEAR, TEAR. They work through the St. Christopher's people. A lot of times it happens where a driver is, for whatever reason, abandoned by his company or her company and end up needing help to get home. The Truckers Emergency assistance responders helps to make sure that happens. There's the Truckers Nonprofit Assistance Fund, donating blood. Now, not while you're driving, but donating blood on the weekends or your break, that's a great way to help people out. All truckers.
Clarification, Tom.
Yes,
I'm really glad that you inform those drivers out there to not just do that while driving.
Not a good thing. Don't donate blood while driving. But you know what? Helping by getting the blood mobile to where it needs to be requires drivers with a CDL, and a lot of times that's what they need more than anything is they need to get the truck from point A to point B. So you can help out with the blood drive and never even have to give blood. You can do what you do best. All Truckers Against Child Abuse, ATTACA, ATTACA.
What does that do, Tom?
That group is putting an end to child abuse. You can they've got a lot of different things and programs that they work with to support local programs that are working with children who are facing the worst time in life. TruckersFinalMile.org, a recognized charity. There's a lot of truckers on any given day. Hundreds of thousands of truckers are all over the United States and Canada, and some of them die. It just, for whatever reason, sometimes natural causes, sometimes an accident, whatever. Getting them home, there's a whole charity about helping get them home. Okay, so the family can deal beautiful. With it. TruckersFinalMile.org. There's a group called Trucker Buddy. It's a pen pal organization. You don't want to directly work with somebody, but you got some time in the evenings to write back and forth with a class of kids and tell them about what you're doing. There's that's available to you. Maybe you don't want to work with people directly. You're good with the old trucks. The American Truck Historical Society. There's Truckers for Tots that helps out with Christmas time. Truckers Christmas Group org. Truckers Christmas Group org makes sure that families of drivers have a chance to have Christmas. What they look for are those families that have had a rough year. Maybe the driver didn't get to work much that year. Maybe there was an injury or an illness involved. Whatever. They need a few $100 to make sure the kids have Christmas present. No kid should have to skip out on Christmas. Truckers Christmas Group org make sure that they can match up together some families that are in need. They're not trying to solve everything, but a few $100 can go a long way to make sure Christmas happens. Truckers for Hope is another great group. They work with St. Jude and end up traveling around the nation. They fix great meals and invite in the public. So that's available to you. The St. Christopher's Trucker Relief Fund is, of course, the preeminent fund in all of trucking, and St. Christopher's is always looking to assist truckers through times of need. And finally, Truckers with Room to Spare. Again, this could be something that you're just doing anyway, especially when there's a crisis and we're trying to get, say, wood or building supplies into a particular area. You've got some room on the truck. They've got some stuff that needs to get there. You're headed in that direction or maybe along that route. They'll meet you in a church parking lot. They'll meet you on the side of the road if they have to. You put a bunch of stuff in your truck. It's a logistics nightmare to get stuff where it needs to go, but these people make it happen. The point is, Dr. Chris, no matter what you're good at or what you'd like to volunteer for, there are volunteer opportunities available for you. Again, go to our website, look under corporate responsibility, and you can find what you want to do. We got 1 minute left. Remind everybody, Dr. Chris, how can they learn more about you, find out more about you, get your books, all that good stuff?
The listener is encouraged to go to georgeclooney.
No. That's the other show.
srqshrink.com. and they can find me. Dr. Christopher Cortman on TikTok and TikTok Shrink. They can find my mental health videos there. I have a number of books, as you know, and they can always find them on Amazon. So, yeah, I always appreciate that. And love talking to the gentleman this way, and really love what you said about all these organizations. Because as Johnny Carson used to say, I did not know that.
That's right. Well, we got him. Hey, we got to run. You got Truckers Life Radio coming up next. Stay tuned. TNCradio.live. TRadio.live. 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 TRadio.